Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. Alongside Matt Adams, Mike Chappell, I'm Dave Griffiths, and we have a full podcast today.
I don't know what we're talking about. What are we doing today? Should
I
I
think
look
we
at
were
the
going to
outline?
do our potential cuts,
Sleepers,
for
sleepers,
preseason.
undrafted free agents, top 5 that could make the
I
roster.
just want, I'll check the outline.
All right. Well, sometimes it only takes one topic to fill one of our shows here on the pod.
Yeah,
we will touch on one or two others for sure here today. Colts signing a veteran cornerback who has a lot of success in his past in the NFL, and some other things in his past as well. Some injury updates from the team that are once again more than disconcerting for a couple of young players who had impressive streaks of play here in training camp. But we begin, as we need to, with the Colts starting quarterback in 2025. It will be Daniel Jones. Word hit at about 10:45 a.m.
around there
on Tuesday, before Shane Steichen's media availability, and that was that. We talked to Shane about it, and he says. Take that with a grain of salt, or however much you want. That Daniel Jones is the quarterback for this season. That
there won't be a short leash.
Doesn't want to put a short leash on it. Exactly. So, Chap, were you surprised to hear both of those two? That first of all, it's going to be Daniel Jones. Number two, that there is no short leash, or that's what Shane Steichen says, at least at this point.
I think leashes will tighten and depending on how well the quarterback plays. If Jones goes out there and is just not very good, then you can't just keep going with him. But I'm surprised. I wouldn't have gone this way. I would have gone with Richardson. We've talked about it, that you've got to find out what you have with Anthony Richardson. You just do. You only do that by playing him, by starting him, and see what you've got. If he gets hurt, then you know. If he's inefficient, then you know. And the more I think about it, maybe they already know. Maybe in their meetings they have convinced themselves with their 2+ years of evidence that they made a mistake. And we're not going to know that. I think we talked to Chris Ballard next week. I don't think he's going to say that, certainly. I would have gone that way, but it's obvious that Shane Steichen believes that Daniel Jones is the guy with this team, with this roster around him, most suited to winning now. And if I'm a head coach, I don't care about next year. I don't. It's about winning now. And again, I don't. A lot of what Shane said yesterday does not speak highly of Anthony Richardson by what he didn't say, but everything you say about operation and command at the line and getting the team in the right checks and all this, my mind always goes, well, then the other guy wasn't doing that.
Right.
And
that's your
that's where you
mindset,
default
right?
to it,
That's
and
where
you go back to the two plays stick in my mind. The first one's obvious, where Richardson didn't recognize the free blitzer.
Just the other week in the preseason.
That's one that everybody has said that's elementary. You have to notice it. And then two, the one incredible throw to Anthony Gould. It was called back by the penalty, but it was I don't know whether the throw was better or the catch was better, but Maney had a running back on the wheel route, safer throw to the left, and he didn't go there. So I understand what Shane Steichen did. I don't agree with it, but I could argue for Daniel Jones as well. Just not my urgency is more. But what about at the end of the season? What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not where Shane Steichen's head is.
I think throughout the entire offseason, we were told by Chris Ballard, by Shane Steichen, that this was a genuine competition at quarterback. From what we saw on the field, every bit of what we saw throughout the offseason, just in that part of the competition, you could not declare an obvious winner, I don't think, between the two. And that's just part of what is going into their evaluations, of course, everything behind the scenes and all that stuff. But I think that's fair to say, Chap, right? That if you were out there at Grand Park, if you were watching these games, if you were a fan who got the opportunity to do that, if you took in everything that we took in throughout the offseason and OTAs and mandatory minicamp and every training camp practice out there, that it was not clear which quarterback was the better quarterback of the two, which is very much abnormal in the NFL. There's almost always a guy who is very obviously the best one in the field.
Right. I didn't think Jones won it. I didn't think Richardson lost it. We were arguing in the press room today. I thought,
As we do.
I thought Richardson had the better training camp. Joel A. Erickson of the Star disagreed. He thought that Jones did. He thought there were too many days where Richardson just didn't throw the ball well. But there were days I thought that Jones didn't throw the ball well. So, again, that's one where no one, stepped up and really grabbed it. And what we don't see is the behind the scenes things. And they saw something that they trust Daniel Jones more than they trust Anthony Richardson. I don't know how else you read it. And they believe that the team around the quarterback, defense that's not been together because of injuries, running game, which should be very good, and offensive line, I'm still withholding judgment, and the option and the skill players, which I think is very good. Tyler Warren and Michael Pittman and Downs and Pierce and all those guys. That the quarterback doesn't need to do magical things. He needs to, the dreaded word, manage, which has never been a compliment to quarterbacks. Again, I don't agree. You may feel differently, but here's where we are, and it's the seventh different starting opening day quarterback in 8 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
That's no way. That's no way to progress.
I'm pretty sure it's 8 and 9 because 2017 was Scott
I
Tolzien.
go back. Is it 8 and 9? I go back to 2017.
Yeah,
so it's 8 and 9, and the only holdover was
Richardson.
Was Richardson,
and that's why, I remember a couple of years ago that I was upset in a way, in a kind of stupid way that Richardson got the starting job over Gardner Minshew,
right?
Because
we
I
couldn't continue our trend
exactly
right?
of a new guy every year. So if that had been Gardner Minshew that year, it would have been 9 and 9. And the more we hear from Shane Steichen and the Colts, the more they would probably, if they were going to be put in that situation again, it would have been Gardner Minshew at that point. So hindsight being 2020, the Colts should have had 9 starting quarterbacks in 9 straight years. This is Cleveland Browns level of the jerseys, from Tim Couch to every guy that had started, to Jeff Garcia, to
Johnny
Derek
Manziel.
Anderson, to Johnny Manziel, the guys that keep getting screeched.
They get that T-shirt and they keep adding names at the bottom of it in smaller letters to fit on the shirt.
Yep, and they're still going. So, when you're a have-not at quarterback in the NFL, it's brutal for the fan base. I think every year.
And the fan base, which fan base is more angry? The Colts with Daniel Jones, or the Browns with Joe Flacco, who was here last year.
Right.
So I understand. And again, I put a poll out on Twitter, and it was Richardson by 88%, about 2,000 votes. Fans wanted Richardson.
Yeah. I'll say this quickly, that when the GM starts doing what the fans want all the time, he's going to end up sitting with the fans in the stands. But continue.
Absolutely. And again, the one thing that, again, one of the things that Shane Steichen kept saying is, the preparation and behind the scenes things matter. And that was one of the things that got Anthony Richardson benched last year, was the lack of attention to detail and not being properly prepared. I would think that by now that has sunk in of how you have to do it. So something's missing. And I think, and we can get into it, is, so now what? What is Richardson's future in Indy, if there is one?
And you'll hear Chris Ballard say the next time he steps up to a microphone, which is usually next week when the final cut down in the roster from 90 to 53 is. So perhaps next week on this podcast, we'll have a little bit from Chris Ballard to say. But you'll hear him say at that time, we're not giving up on Anthony.
Patience.
Have patience.
Every player's development is different.
Yep. These are sound bites you will hear. You'll maybe even hear names.
If somebody called
Darnold.
And offered you a 5th round pick for him, do you take him? Do you take it? I wouldn't, because I don't like third day picks. I don't. But and again, if you trade Richardson, then your backup is Riley Leonard, and he's not ready yet.
Right.
So and again, if you're convinced that this team can be a contender with a quarterback who's going to manage the game, then you can't risk not having a quarterback in reserve. And I'll flip on this outline here when I mentioned the future of Richardson. He was asked that yesterday a couple times about, does he still believe the team has faith and belief in him? And he said, they tell me they do. So, you have to take them at their word. Well, Stephen Holder of ESPN got a hold of the agent, and he stopped short of saying he was going to ask for a trade. But he made it very clear that one of the big things between players and teams is trust. And the trust is tenuous now between the Colts and Anthony Richardson.
Right. And that stems from, I think, what we were talking about earlier, that from what we saw, there was no clear winner out there on the field,
right.
From what we saw. So, and if as we kind of talked about throughout this offseason, if the tie went to the incumbent, if the tie goes to the guy that was the guy who was here and the guy that you want to develop, that's supposed to be Anthony Richardson.
Right.
So, like, from his perspective, I understand that frustration if he thought that he, at the very least, tied Daniel Jones in the entire battle, and everything else that they said was true about wanting to develop him and see where it goes and trying to invest in this young quarterback. So from his perspective, like that I'm trying to offer I'm not saying this is exactly what I believe, but just trying to give you a hint into the mind of Anthony Richardson at this point, if indeed he and his agent are frustrated by the situation.
One comment, though, that the agent made that Stephen quoted was that, by all accounts, Richardson had a great training camp. Well, he didn't. by all accounts, he didn't. He had a good training camp, and I think we saw some improvement. I don't know that I saw the type of accuracy and all that I was hoping for after an off season of really honing in on that. He was like 58% in training camp and 11 on 11s. So, but all I know is that Richardson handled this about as well as he could yesterday with his comments, disappointed and all this. He said he's still got room to improve and all that. But an agent can sort of stir things up. Mm-hmm. That happened with Jonathan Taylor a couple years ago.
And that was less than fun.
Yes. So, but no, I don't think they're ready to give up on Richardson. History tells us that he will play this year because of, quarterbacks get hurt, quarterbacks don't play well. And again, I think that the long leash that Jones has got could get tight very quickly if he doesn't play well.
Anthony Richardson talking about saying some more, says he's been focusing on improving. He didn't take the decision personal. Feels he's made strides in preparation and knowledge, and that was really what Shane Steichen kind of pointed to was consistency in operation, and all that stuff, and accuracy, completion percentage, which, okay.
Jones as a career is he's 64%.
That's better for sure than 47.
Right. And the one thing that Shane Steichen kept honing in on is, in 2022, they were like one game away from the NFC Championship game.
I know he is obsessed with that 2022 season.
And he played well.
He did. He had it was a career year for him. He had good rushing numbers. He had good pass efficiency and that sort of thing. But it's been a while.
He's 3-13 in his last 16 starts.
Yeah, the Colts try to forget their own 2020 season, but they're focusing on Daniel Jones's 2022 season. Excuse me. Yes.
God, we could have a whole podcast on going over that.
Like I've been thinking about that. Like I want to do like maybe yearly recap podcasts, and I think that there could be some really good ones after from 2018 on.
I'm busy the week we do the 2022. I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
I'll let you guys rehash that.
I would love to do the 2021 year and really dive into the ins and outs of that season, because I think that would be the best one out of all of them. But anyway, the Colts have their starting quarterback. What else could we talk about here? I think that here's what I wanted to say. like, I think that in some sense, this is a surprising move to have Daniel Jones as the starter based on everything that we've seen throughout this offseason about the Colts claiming, at least, that they still believe in Anthony Richardson and wanting him to develop.
He's now been benched twice in 9 or 10 months.
Yes. So I think that you could see breadcrumbs along both avenues, if that makes sense. So in some sense, the surprise is mitigated by that. Like, first of all, you signed Daniel Jones for $14 million. Like, that's an expensive backup quarterback.
That is a big contract.
So at that point, you're like, oh, this is serious. If the money says anything. So that's I think number one. And number two is, like, throughout, like, when they're talking about it throughout the offseason, Shane Steichen, Chris Ballard had used words like consistency as one of the more important factors of being this starting quarterback. And Daniel Jones, from what he is not, electric, from everything that he did, he is more consistent. You know more about what he's going to give.
You know what for the most part, you know what you're going to get.
It has been that way in his career so far, at least. Then Anthony Richardson, who provides the wow plays, but not the consistency. But with Daniel Jones, you could also say, well, he's been consistently not that great for the past couple years. You know, he's last year, 6.1 yards per play, and Richardson was up at 6.9, even with completing only 47.7% of his passes. Like, Jones completes 64% and is still only at 6.1 yards per play. Like, that is ludicrously low for a quarterback and for a stat that Shane Steichen allegedly cares about.
Right.
Like, so it was hard to tell, I think, going back and forth between these two guys. But there were breadcrumbs going along both ways.
Did they ever give you a lot of breadcrumbs leading towards Richardson? I don't know. I don't know that they ever. I got going back and look if the comments. Not that Shane Steichen really endorsed either player that much but I don't remember there were a lot of that. Hey, they're leaning towards Richardson, and if you go back and look, there was probably more. Well, they're leaning towards Jones by what they said. So I didn't think there was a clear winner. I didn't think there was a clear loser, and I did think that the tie goes to the incumbent. And that's not what happened.
The thing that kind of pushed me over the edge to when I seriously started to think that Daniel Jones was going to be the starter was actually in the preseason when, in game one, Anthony Richardson went out with basically the whole second team.
Right.
And in game two, Daniel Jones went out with basically the whole first team, which was the plan. So I was like, at that point, it was like, whoever was getting more time, like that what didn't matter quite so much to me. When you saw who they planned to play around all these guys, I was like, is this really a hint of what's to come in a week or two? And it turns out that it was.
Well, the only difference is, though, they weren't going to play starters in the first game.
Right. Yeah. Both the players.
That's the only.
But at that point, like if that was your plan, like if Richardson was the favorite, then he would have started the second game, and
Maybe.
Jones would have started the first game. That's what I'm saying.
I see. But yeah, it took me a little off guard, but it's been kind of a wild ride, really, right? Because at the end of the mini camp, we had the shoulder issue.
Maybe that played into it too
with Richardson, and at that point, I thought to myself, kind of, here we go again on injury stuff. It's going to be Daniel Jones.
Right.
Then camp starts. It seems like it's a pretty even type of deal. Like, Richardson makes the occasional wow play. He's hitting some of his underneath throws a little bit better than maybe he has in the past. But Jones is just there being consistent for the most part. But neither one is blowing anyone out of the water. And that continued in the preseason, in the game action that we saw. Then when you look at the second preseason game, which, you had Pittman in there and you had Taylor in the backfield and more of your starters along the offensive line, it's not going to, affect him all that much. But we did see Jones mishandled an exchange at center. Yep. And it happens to all quarterbacks. I'm like, that's not going to disqualify you from being a starting quarterback in the league. But then we also had another throw where he had Tyler Warren wide open down there on the sideline, which would have been a huge chunk play, which is the thing that's kind of the knock against Jones.
Right.
Maybe you don't get those explosives, right? And he doesn't hit on that play. And then you have Richardson coming in the first preseason game, and here we are, dislocated pinky, right? Second game he comes in, he has a couple really nice, quick, determinate underneath throws that he makes. And it feels like the throwing base is a little bit wider. The decisions came a little bit quicker. But then a little bit later, he had a couple of throws to DJ Giddens, your running back. One, he throws it behind him, which is a cardinal sin. Don't ever throw the ball. You got to put the ball on your running back. The next time he tried to throw to Giddens, he pretty much hung him out to dry on a ball that if Giddens had caught it, it was going to be a bad thing because it went out in front of him. And so you still see some of the things that, that kind of bug you about both of these quarterbacks is Richardson can't make decisions or doesn't place the ball as accurately as he can. But Jones is consistent, but cannot maybe hit the deep ball as well. So it really does kind of just pin you in on what you're going to do with the situation.
As we've said before, the Colts in 2023 were a hair's breadth away from making the playoffs with Gardner Minshew as their starting quarterback. Shane Steichen, I think, believes that he needs Gardner Minshew plus one. Right. That's it, just plus one. And then you can get back to the playoffs. From his perspective, then, if he's a playoff coach, I think he stays on another year. The coach wants to get the player that gives you the better chance to win. And so you can look at Daniel Jones and say, I think he's a little bit better than Gardner Minshew. I think we have a team that's very comparable, if not a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball to that 23
They better be
team.
better than on defense with what they've invested.
Yes,
very true.
We'll
right.
see.
And so, by that logic, Daniel Jones gives me the safe bet
I can
to
make
be
that
steady
argument.
in the future.
If I'm a senior in college and I get that in debate, I can make that argument.
Right, completely.
Without making things up.
Like Anthony Richardson is so much more of a wild card. And if you are Shane Steichen, do you want to bet your future on a wild card? It makes sense to go with the safer option. And Daniel Jones, for him, is the safer option, for sure.
But again, so then that's an indictment on Anthony Richardson.
Yes.
More so, it's an indictment on Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen. Because
he's part of it too.
He's a big part of it. When people start bashing the GM, as will happen, as should happen when you miss on this, if they've missed on this quarterback, Shane Steichen was right there with him. When it came time, I don't, again, their choices were at the time were Richardson or Will Levis, which thank gosh we don't have that.
Well, maybe he would have been spectacular here. You never know.
Okay, right. And they couldn't, they weren't able, if they tried to move up, to get Stroud. But I think when it came time, Shane said, I can work with this guy. We can do great things with him. And so again, these guys were paired with this decision. I'm sure Jim Irsay was right there with them. So let's just not just dump all this on the GM. This was an organizational decision that to this point has not worked.
No, coaches need to develop the players too once they're here. GM needs to get the right players here, and coaches will have a big hand in saying, "Yeah, I can develop this guy." So,
but also, and again, I understand injury concerns play into this. But again, you cannot develop a guy if he's not on the field.
The worst thing that happened. And Chap and I were talking about this just
you're
today.
Spot on.
Like the worst thing that could have happened for Anthony Richardson's development was to get hurt that first year. Like, I think you can go back in hindsight and say Gardner Minshew should have started and he should have come off the bench. But if you start him game one, he needs to keep playing. Like, to get out there, to be thrown out there, and then to just have everything cut off. Where
make all your mistakes that you're going to make and see the things that you're not seen before, that sort of thing.
Where that process is just halted immediately. Like, we can ask him all we want about doing work behind the scenes at that point, but it's not the same. It's not going to be the same because you have to focus on rehab so much at that point to be able to get back to being an actual NFL quarterback.
Because he can't work on the finer points or anything because he's just trying to make sure that he can actually throw a football.
This is not you straining your labrum at the Y and you can't play for 3 months.
Right.
Okay. Like, you're going to have to come back and go against the best players in the world. So you have to be focused on getting back and getting as strong as you were before. So your physical well-being is very much trumping everything else at that point. And
Right.
Anthony Richardson's already a physical specimen, for crying out loud. He's the best testing athlete in the history of the NFL Combine. Like, there's no questions about his athleticism. Everything that was questioned was everything else about him. And he lost the opportunity to develop that in the manner that the Colts wanted him to develop that as when he was made a starting quarterback immediately. So that significantly put him behind the 8 ball and put the team on this path to the position where they are now.
And it kind of feels like, all right, and we've heard Ballard say it a couple times, we should have sat him down in his first year. Now we're in year 3, and they're going to have him sit and learn.
Right.
And by the time you're a third year quarterback in the league, that's just too late to do that.
Yeah.
Like, you can't retroactively sit a guy from his rookie season.
Go ahead.
When you brought up the with how they should have handled it, I mentioned, and again, I'm not comparing the players at all, but when they drafted Peyton Manning in '98, the decision was made that day that he was taking every snap, and he did. He started every game, he took every snap, and for the first 6 or 7 games, he wasn't very good.
He set the rookie interception record that year, too.
That still stands.
And then he's always a very smart,
right.
like a little digs about it. Like, I wish somebody could break that record.
But the thing is that they decided that they were going to allow him to go take his lumps, have mistakes. And I'm telling you, the light went on about midway through the season at San Francisco, and then he was a different quarterback. And I'm not comparing the two players at all, but the thought process is the same. Is he needs to play, he needs to learn, and that's not been the case with Richardson at all. 13 starts at Florida, and and I do believe that he came here immature, naive, whatever the word is. He was 20 years old. He's 20. He's 23 for crying out loud. Just turned 23. So he didn't come here, in my mind, with the mindset of I'm the guy. No. He may have thought I'm the guy, but what it takes to be the guy.
Didn't understand what
he didn't understand the enormous responsibility, which led last year to the benching. So everything is conspired against Richardson, and I put more of the blame, I think, on the team. I really do, just because they knew they were getting this lump of clay, and they just didn't handle it right. And they've said that, but you bench him last year because of his lack of whatever preparation. You didn't see that as a rookie or in the first couple of weeks of his second year or during the off season.
It's not like we're dealing with a different staff here.
Right,
either.
right. So, but it's just that it's led to this awkward situation. I tell you, this will not be the first or second time that we've talked about that there's no short leash. It's going to come up, and I'm telling you, if heaven forbid, because I've been through bad seasons. I mean, really bad seasons. If you want a bad season, I think 1-15 in 1999.
There you go.
When they scored like a touchdown a game, that's bad. But if Jones goes out there against the Dolphins and he goes 11 for 25, 140 yards and a couple of interceptions, and you lose, you're not going to be able to hear anybody think, because the booze is going to come down and the clamoring for Richardson.
Yep.
And then how long can the coach stand and say, well, we've got to let this thing play out? Well,
Daniel's our guy.
That plays for about 3 weeks, and then the locker room, there'll be voices sort of in the locker room, maybe anonymous. But if this doesn't work initially because of performance, the leash will get shorter. It just will.
Yeah. We're talking to some of the veterans in the locker room today. Xavier Franklin was one specifically that really stood behind Anthony pretty strongly from everything he said. And like you tell what players really believe when they say things they don't have to say. And that was something Xavier didn't have to go as strong as he did, like defending Anthony Richardson, saying he believes in him. He's so young. He's seen the talent. He thinks he has a future in this league. Like, I can tell that he genuinely believes that. Like, you could ask him the question. He could say, yeah, Anthony, like, we like him, blah, blah, blah. He's a good kid. Like,
but now we're on to Daniel.
Exactly. Like, you can always pivot it super quickly if it's something that you don't truly believe. But he went all in on it. He really did. And so there are players in this locker room and leaders in this locker room who still believe in Anthony Richardson.
If you took a poll of the locker room, What would the split be?
Like, I think that's a really good question because a lot of those players, like especially defensive players, they're not in quarterback meetings,
Right.
so they're seeing some things. Like they'll see walkthroughs and they'll probably see quarterbacks get corrected by coaches in those walkthroughs.
Right.
So they see more than us, but they don't see everything like the coaches do who are making the decisions.
Right.
So, like maybe I think it might be pretty darn close to split as well.
I think it would be heavier Richardson.
I think so too. Yes, because he's
60-40,
been around.
I don't know, and I'm not really talking about the 90-man roster. I'm talking about guys who have been here and have been through this is the third year with AR. So, and again, I think the coach. Somebody asked the coach if did you confer with the team, with the leaders before you made the decision. I don't think you do. I think you inform them and explain why you did. But if you go to your 7 or 10 player and it comes back 6-4, I mean, what are you doing?
This is not a back and forth thing.
No,
right?
and like Steichen said, this was my decision. This is what I get paid to do.
Right.
And I do believe this is his decision.
Yeah.
And I do believe that Chris Ballard and Carly had serious input. Whether they agreed or not, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to let the head coach make the decision, and then it either works or it doesn't. But it's his decision. You don't mandate.
You don't mandate who's going to be the starting quarterback.
It's not a good idea to mandate.
Right. It can be more challenging for the team
Correct.
to do exactly what it's supposed to do in that situation. You're watching the Colts Blue Zone podcast on Fox 59 Now. And many avenues you can watch the podcast here on Fox 59 Now, on YouTube, on so many places that you can download wherever you get subscribe, get your podcast from. A lot more to get to besides just the quarterback. So I think it would be.
But the quarterback's all that matters.
It is true.
It is. That's why we have spent like more than a half an hour.
Yep.
Usually a main topic is 15 to 20 minutes for the most part. That's kind of how
we're going to be talking quarterback.
Yes.
Every week.
Yeah,
every week.
I have a feeling we'll
dissecting the performances and seeing what people have to say.
And before we leave,
I was going to say we're still here. So let's keep going.
Before we leave it,
that's fine.
I thought the interesting thing was like Quentin Nelson yesterday and Quentin doesn't say a lot.
Right.
He just, it's not his demeanor, but he was asked about how frustrating, or is this frustrating that every year? And he just didn't say, yeah. He gave you a 90-second soundbite about yes,
which is usually his entirety of 10 questions.
He mentions, hey,
seconds.
when you've got some teams have a Patrick Mahomes or like that, and it is better, and it allows you to grow as an offensive line. And he said, so yeah, he said, I'd be lying to say it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And to have a player like Quentin, who is arguably their best player. He's a guard.
You can make a good argument that he's the best player. Yeah.
But he's an unquestioned leader. And the one thing that when I did that story with Quentin is, and we've talked about this, is when you have this situation that has lingered since Andrew Luck retired, what you're doing is and the guys I mentioned, Quentin, DeForest Buckner, Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, Braden Smith, you got really quality players. Ryan Kelly's gone. And you've not been allowed to maximize some really, really high-end players because you can't figure it out. We talked to DeForest Buckner today, and he sort of shrugged off the quarterback change. He said, yeah, I've had 15 in 10 years. 15 starting quarterbacks in 10 years. And when the scrum got away, I stood there, I said, can you name them? He can name them.
Good for him.
And it includes Nick Mullins. It includes Blaine Gabbert, CJ, I can't remember. Beathard. Yeah. Garoppolo. So players deal with it. He's got his own issues with defense, and that's what but again, it just holds everybody. I always default to 2021.
Yep.
When JT runs for 1,800 yards. And they don't make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
The team's you've got to maximize a franchise record season by a running, the greatest season by a running back in this team's history. And this team's had some great running backs. So that's what the problem is when you don't get the quarterback done. is you're just seeing these great years by great players go away.
That's why I think that 2021 season review podcast would be very interesting.
It would
I think
be.
We would,
It'd probably be spirited because you and I disagree.
Yes, it would be. It would be a very.
But that's fine. That's fine.
Yes, we're allowed to disagree.
You could just watch Hard Knocks because
right.
They
Hard Knocks was here.
That whole season.
They did. They were there, but I'm sure there were a lot
but
of
they
things.
didn't get the full story on everything.
I'm sure
right?
they didn't on absolutely everything there.
I still got the tape.
Oh yeah,
of the day after that game.
Oh yeah, the tape. I know exactly what tape you're talking about.
And if I ever wanted, so
if you want to go out on a high note,
if I wanted to go, I would have done that after that, and it would have been one of my great stories, and it would have been my last story.
The Colts have signed cornerback Xavier Howard, former Miami Dolphin, Pro Bowler,
who they opened up with regular season opener.
Who he was asked today in the locker room, you know who they play game one, and he kind of laughed because that it ended less than well in Miami for the Pro Bowler, the All Pro. A 1-year deal worth reportedly $5 million. The Colts brought in Howard because everyone else in that cornerback room has been hurt. Yeah. And it's been one after the other for them back there. He did not play in the NFL last year and sat out because he said that he had some opportunities to play, but none of them were right. There were some other factors. He had a Lisfranc injury that was healing.
He said that injury wasn't an issue. Last
exactly.
offseason.
I was about to say that
right.
He says that was not an issue. He's also had some legal troubles, which Matt didn't list here. So I don't want to say exactly what it is because I don't know the exact verbiage.
Right.
I would encourage you to go online, read Mike Chappell's work at fox59.com, cbs4indy.com. You could get the exact words that are used whenever things are are in a criminal related or in a civil related. I know. So and I agree with you. And that's why we keep our focus really here more so on the on-field impact.
Yeah, I didn't want to
no,
drop in a comment on that.
But he did mention that the civil lawsuit came up
when he was talking to other teams.
Right, and it did play some part. But the Colts did their James Boyd with the Athletic got a comment from Chris Ballard where he said that they looked into it.
Mm-hmm.
They made it clear what's expected of Howard. So this is what you can't have 53 players with no off-field issues, and we can argue what the tolerance is. But they did it. He's here. So, and the one thing that strikes me is they had a chance to do this 6 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
They did. But these injuries have just forced their hand. Jalen Jones, Juju Brents, Justin Wally, who was going to be a starter. He just was.
Yep.
And then Sam Womack goes out the other day. So if this works, if he's got some juice, what is he, 32?
32, I think.
And as Lou Anarumo said, well, he's got some fresh legs because he didn't play last year.
Mm-hmm. That's a positive way to look at it.
But he didn't play last year. So, but if let's say this is Stephon Gilmore, let's say this is Xavier Rhodes, who gave you a good year, and then not so much. That's all that you want is 1 year from him. And if that's the case, he will help going into the season.
So even one of their just to go back to cornerbacks, one of their other guys, Jonathan Edwards, I believe, suffered a concussion in their preseason game. So it's just like one thing after another with this group, unfortunately.
A 4-time Pro Bowler, was first-team All-Pro in the infamous 2020 season, second-team All-Pro back in 2018. He led the NFL in interceptions twice, both of those 2 years, 2018, 2020. Career high of 10 in 2020. Which is a ludicrous number
that is
of
absurd,
interceptions.
isn't it?
That's a lot. Like you would think the teams would stop throwing that way,
right?
But apparently they didn't. But if he comes here, well, he is here. Excuse me. Well, if he gets to play here, I should say, which all indications are he will, because there's no one else there.
Hey, the unofficial depth chart has him listed as the number one corner.
He will get the opportunity to make some plays because the other side is Charvarius Ward.
Or not the number one. The
exactly.
Starter,
the number one, start with the number ones.
Mooney is your one,
and then Kenny Moore is on the inside. So they're going to have to pick on the weak link, the other team. And right now, you think going into the season, the weak link is going to be Howard.
Xavier Howard,
exactly, because Ward has had a pretty good preseason. Yep. He had a pretty good year last year. Kenny Moore is a Pro Bowl level player.
And Howard can, including today, has practiced twice.
And he didn't play it all last year.
Right.
So.
So he's gonna get the first look. So we'll see very quickly, I think, how good or how disappointing he is. And I don't know what he's going to be. I literally have absolutely no idea. He was asked about his age today. He's 32 years old, which not all corners can play at 32 in the NFL. Like, it's a legitimate question that was asked, and I forget who asked it. I wish I could remember.
Bowen
It was Kevin Bowen? Okay. And Howard, he said when he was answering it, said something about a disrespectful question. I don't think he was. Well, he might have been calling Kevin disrespectful. I don't. First of all, Kevin is not disrespectful at all. But I understand the question has to be asked because not every corner can play in the NFL at 32 years old. So the question was basically, it was a very tame question. It was
a very fair question.
What do you think? Like, why do you think that you can play at 32? Because not everybody can. And he actually eventually gave a good answer. Like, you have to like use your head. You have to know all the other stuff, and you can't just completely rely on your skills anymore. But anyway, it was just a weird moment in the interview there with him that. You could say that there are other cornerbacks in the league that play at 32 without, I guess, using the word disrespectful. So I thought that was maybe he has a chip on his shoulder. Maybe that's a good thing if you're a Colts fan that have him to have him have that chip.
So Anarumo basically said when asked about it, ball skills don't lie.
Right.
Like, once you have that, that's not something that you can lose, but you can lose a little bit of, you can lose a step, you can lose a little bit of athleticism over the years. So we'll just have to see.
Well, outside of the cornerbacks, there are several other positions that are more than questionable right now with some injuries. Safety Hunter Wohler placed on injured reserve with a Lisfranc injury. So his season is done. That's what happens at this point of the year if you get put on injured reserve. Just to be clear, like, your season is done. There are ways to come back from injured reserve, but those players get put on injured reserve at cutdown day.
You get two.
Right, you get two of them. Last year, it was Samson Ebukam and Cam McGrone. Those were the two players that the Colts designated to return.
That you hope there's a chance they can return, which Ebukam certainly didn't.
With Ebukam, that was
and McGrone did.
Hopeful.
Right, McGrone came back.
And
later.
there will be there's going to be a player or two that they put on IR at the cut to 53.
Mm-hmm. But Wohler starts is out for the season now. And he was
Blake Freeland.
And Blake Freeland, another one, a veteran offensive lineman. Blake Freeland placed on injured reserve with a fractured leg, which is a really bad injury, man. We had our camera was there on the field that just got the perfect shot of what happened to Blake. So you feel terrible for him, and he's going to miss the rest of this 2025 season. That means Jalen Travis is now your backup swing tackle by default, the rookie 4th, 5th round pick out of Iowa State. So it seemed like it was trending that he was the backup, at least the backup at left tackle. But Blake Freeland is now completely out of the picture. So that's a possibility or a way that an area they could go out, decide to sign a veteran backup.
They will. Point. I mean, don't you think when cuts come, you're looking for a swing tackle?
Looking around the league,
people don't get rid of
good tackles,
even so tackles.
Sometimes bad tackles you hold on to. We've seen that once or twice here. So
I do think they'll be looking for that. They'll be looking for a linebacker, maybe a safety. I don't know.
Yep.
But yeah, that's all of a sudden, like you said, Travis is, and boy, he was out there a lot against the Packers a long time.
Yep.
And after Freeland went down, I thought, man, let's get Travis out of there.
Need to keep him on ice.
They've already announced that the starters and a lot of backups aren't going to play.
Right. No Anthony Richardson. By the way, this is going to be Riley Leonard's show and Jason Bean. So you don't expect the backup quarterback this coming weekend either.
But you've got to play guys because you need 7 offensive linemen probably. I mean, guys are going to play. I kind of liken it in baseball when you're playing and your starter gets rocked and it's like 8-0 in the 3rd inning, and you bring a pitcher in and you say, listen, you're going to go out there and you're going to throw.
Mm-hmm.
We need you to eat some innings.
Yep.
And that's what this is going to be. They need guys to play extended minutes. And there's with all these injuries, there's going to be more spots open than maybe you think.
Right.
Because you're going to carry, I think there's a chance they carry 2 or 3 players anyway that are going to be ready. Josh Downs last year, to where you carried him, but he takes a roster spot.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some spots that are open and that'll be eaten up by injured players carried on the active.
Right. And when the NFL, everyone cuts the rosters down to 53. I get the sense that the Colts are going to be a pretty active team out there
They
looking
normally
for.
are anyway.
Yes, but when you get especially one position group or a couple position groups
Right.
hit so heavily, you have guys around the league that you liked from undrafted free agents, 6th, 7th round picks that are not going to make the team that they were drafted to or that they were signed to immediately after the draft, or even veteran guys that miss out on spots here and there. The Colts scooped up Kenny Moore years ago,
Right.
In 2017, I believe it was, off the Patriots' final cut to get down to 53. Chris Ballard did it kicking and screaming, but darn it, he
But
did
they
it.
needed a body.
They needed a body, and Kenny was a body. And he turned out to be a whole lot more than that, obviously, in his career. So sometimes those are happy coincidences or happy turns of events
Right.
to have. But most of the time, it's just to bring someone in as a body.
They've got all these guys do, the GMs and the personnel guys. They've got lists on their board.
Yep.
Of available free agents, guys that are out there. But they've also been doing their work on which players might get cut. They just do, so they know, so they can prepare. And the thing is, with the waiver wire, they're going to be picking 15th. What is that?
About halfway down, yes.
Right. So 14 teams get a chance before you do. So would they trade for somebody? Maybe. I would be willing to give up a 6th or 7th round pick if there's a guy that I really like. You got a good idea he's going to get cut,
Right,
waived. So then he doesn't go through waivers.
Mhm.
But no, they will be 2 or 3 players.
Right.
4 is a bit much,
yeah.
because of where you are in the process. But this roster, again, there's a couple spots that are undecided because of injury, and because you want to be better.
Maybe like a conditional pick swap. That'd be like a 6th, 7th round pick
What's
swap.
baseball got player to be named later?
Exactly.
You can't do that in the
No,
NFL. But
can't do that.
Also, just a random thought since you mentioned conditional draft picks. The Minnesota Vikings,
Yeah.
by virtue of having had Daniel Jones leave, they'll get a compensatory draft pick, and it'll be a better pick the more Daniel Jones plays. So if he does indeed play the full season for the Colts, this doesn't really affect the Colts, obviously, but if he does play a full season for the Colts, then it could be up to like maybe a 4th round pick.
Wow,
for the Vikings.
That'd be a boon for them. They bring him in as a practice squad player, basically a minimum salary guy, just to come in and hang out for a couple months, and they got a 4th round pick out of it. So not too shabby.
Nope.
If you're the Minnesota Vikings. Also, a linebacker, Jacob Phillips, with a bicep injury, is going to miss the season as well. Wanted to throw that in there.
Another position where they're
kind of thin, but we thought they were going to be thin there anyway, just because it
yep.
seems like they're going to be playing that a little bit less in this defense. Several players missed Tuesday's practice as well on offense. Josh Down, hamstring. Tyler Goodson, elbow. Braden Smith, groin. Defense, it was Nick Cross with a hip flexor, Jalen Jones with his hamstring, and Juju Brents as well with his hamstring. Kwity Paye, groin. Samson Ebukam back. Jalen Carlisle still out with that ankle. My goodness. Some better news that Alec Pierce and Kenny Moore returned to practice, but there's still a laundry list of those
Bernard
those guys.
Ryman also.
Bernard Ryman also returned to practice. Yes.
Because that was a surprise, I guess, in the preseason game because everybody expected him to be
there. We saw during that joint practice that he was down on the field across from us, and I thought they were retaping the ankle. And again, I'm not a doctor. Most of these guys, I think, a lot of these guys, they'll be ready for the opener. You've got 2.5 weeks.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
A few of them I don't think will be. Jalen Jones, I will be very surprised. I just will be. But I think Jolie Erickson at practice today mentioned that Juju Brents is working on the side with the rehab guys, which is a plus.
Yep.
It's a plus. So, and again, they need to get Jalen Jones back, which I don't think he's ready for the start of the season. Maybe he's a guy that you use that designation IR.
Possibly, yes.
He and Jalen Carlisle, maybe. Yeah. So, but no, it's in flux, and it's just amazing that it's the secondary. It's, with Sam Womack go down, and again, with all the other things going on, you get Jonathan Edwards gets a concussion. It's sort of overlooked, except that it's in the cornerback room.
Once you're wringing your hands over your undrafted free agent corner that has a concussion, like, oh no, what's going to happen in this game?
And then again, this could be a really good draft class for them if Tyler Warren is what you think he is, and he probably is. Boy, you lose Wally and you lose Wohler. they were going to play.
Yeah, Wooler was all over the place.
Yep.
In that
Right,
first
and
preseason
Wally
game.
was going to probably be our starter opposite of
Ward.
Mooney Ward.
Yep, 100% he would have been. So what is already what looked like a promising draft class now gets just completely thrown up in the
Right.
air. And like you don't count on stuff in the future because you have somebody like Daniel Scott who's drafted a couple years ago and then he loses 2 years in a row, or Jelani Woods loses 2 complete years of his career because of injury. So not going to make any final declarations about this draft class now, even though it looked promising there for the first couple weeks of training camp. Daniel Jones, starting quarterback. Cam McGrone listed as the starting will linebacker right now, and Howard and Ward are your two cornerbacks. So those are kind of the question mark positions that
they dropped
filled.
They dropped the or
Yeah.
on the depth
No
chart.
more or. It is
Right.
now Daniel Jones.
Did you just white out, you think?
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And finished there. The third and final preseason game will kick off Saturday afternoon at 1. Broadcast here in Central Indiana on CBS 4. Of course, tune in a half hour early, 12:30 p.m. for the Colts Blue Zone pregame show. No starters, no backup Anthony Richardson. It'll be a lot of the guys that have something to prove right now that are trying to play for an opportunity either here with the Colts or elsewhere in the NFL based on their performance on the field here in this last week. These are games when guys can earn spots. We spoke to Xavier Franklin in the locker room about that. Like he kind of joked afterwards, like guys don't know that that's where his start was
Right.
because, I mean, he's a Pro Bowl player now. He led the NFL in tackles. Rookies come in. They don't know that, but Xavier remembers it. You better believe it.
Right.
The process that he went through to get there. So guys that are on the field this weekend could end up being key contributors to franchises down the road. Probably not going to happen as much this year, but this is an important
And if
important
not
weekend.
here, somewhere else.
Exactly. And sometimes that's what happens. It happens somewhere else, like Kenny Moore, for example.
And that's why, I mean, Spencer Schrader's won the kicking battle. We've talked about that before, but that's why they're going to put Maddox Trujillo out there and
Yep.
let him kick. And, you know, maybe he hits a 55-yarder and somebody gets injured or they want a better kicker. And maybe that's his chance to catch on with somebody else.
Mm-hmm. And other teams say, oh, yeah, because in the NFL, if you have a kicker that can hit 55, that'll get you a look.
Get you some
You know?
looks. Yep.
For sure. Regular season will kick off on September 7th at home against Xavier Howard's former Miami Dolphins there as well. So plenty to look forward to between now and then. But for now, I'm sure the quarterback issue will come up once or twice over the next coming weeks before that regular season opener.
We're going to be talking about this in November.
Yes, we are, for sure. Like you've said before, this is going to be even though Shane Steichen says it's a long leash or he doesn't want a short leash.
He
like,
had to say that.
Yes, he did. And has to come a point where if there are struggles, there are going to be questions. And you heard at training camp, if you were out there, when Anthony Richardson came out onto the field, he got some big cheers from the fans out there. Like the fans want to see Anthony. They want to see excitement. And I understand that. Shane Steichen wants to keep his job next year. So he made the decision that he thinks, as I think outlined a little bit earlier, what could possibly lead him
kind of
direction.
the safe pick is
Exactly.
kind of is where it landed. It'd be interesting to know if the situation were a little bit different with Ballard and Steichen and where they had drafted Richardson, if that would be where they would be on this decision. But I think I see where they're kind of thinking on this.
So we'll see. We'll see if that reasoning turns out to be.
Not saying I agree
results.
with it necessarily.
Exactly.
I'm just saying I can kind of see if I lean over a little bit and turn my head, I can kind of understand where their thinking is.
We do appreciate you for listening to this Colts Blue Zone podcast. Watch it online on YouTube. You can watch it on our Fox 59 Now app, which is available now on Samsung TVs. So if you have a Samsung TV, download that Fox 59
2023 or newer.
Exactly, model year 2023 or newer Samsung TV, but also still on Roku, on Amazon Fire, on Apple TV as well, and always wherever you get your podcasts available. Download, subscribe, and we'll get it delivered as soon as we drop every week. Looking forward to hopefully hearing from Chris Ballard next week. I'm sure he'll have some interesting things to say about this quarterback competition and other topics as the season approaches. But for now, that's all. For Matt and Mike, I'm Dave. Appreciate you listening. We'll see you next week on the Colts Blue Zone podcast.